So, when did you start fencing? He asked as he bit into a pork hunk and watched the gypsies. I've only just started, but I figured what better place to learn than in a competition. Thrane's eyes widened. I think anywhere would be better than in an actual competition. The people here aren't looking to teach you. They're looking to win. Frederick grinned. Hey, I'll give 'em a go for their money, he replied, grinning. Thrane began to reply, but was interrupted before the words could leave his mouth. Hi, handsome, how are you? Asked a gypsy girl dressed in very thin green sparkling mesh. Frederick looked up from his plate and met her bright hazel eyes. Unlike Thrane, Frederick had always been prim and proper, afraid to go out of his comfort zone. Even as children, Frederick had always preferred the company of books over people, especially females. He had never been able to mumble more than a few incoherent words to a girl that he admired. Thrane had always been the one to coax him out of his shell, and he did so on numerous occasions when they were shipped away to the Twin Cities during the Shreven War. Hi, I'm a fencer, said Frederick, turning bright pink in the face. She smirked at him. Aw, we've never played with a fencer before. Can you show us how to use that fancy sword? The gypsy giggled. We? He replied, trembling. She smiled and winked an eye at him as another gypsy draped in red and gold silk walked to her side. Her deep blue eyes locked with Frederick's. He gulped nervously, then shifted awkwardly in his seat. Of course. He stood and reached for his sword with trembling hands, fumbling to remove it from its sheath, and then muttered, You just have to, He finally managed to grab the hilt and began to unsheath the saber when the gypsy giggled and grabbed his wrist. She pulled his hand from the sword and stepped closer to him. How about a private lesson? She said while running a finger down his chest. Frederick's face was now beet red, and he had begun sweating uncontrollably. Private, lesson? Yes, I suppose. Before he could finish his sentence, the gypsy pulled his arm, ushering him toward a tall maroon tent. Thrane chuckled, staring at the woman's hips as she walked away. Frederick turned around, pale in the face, making awkward eye contact with Thrane. I'll be back, Thrane, he yelled in a cracking voice. Thrane laughed, then leaned back on the bench. Ha ha, whatever you say. I hope you've had more practice with a woman than you have with that sword. The blonde woman in red reached for Frederick's chin and focused his gaze on her as they disappeared into the tent. Thrane reached for his goblet, taking another sip of ale. He swallowed, then shuddered. He remembered his father drinking out of a similar mug and his mother scolding him for overindulging. His thoughts shifted to another memory of his father hastily buckling his armor and rushing Thrane and his mother out of their home and into a wooden carriage. He remembered his father's worried eyes as he kissed him and his mother goodbye, then disappeared into a sea of soldiers. His mother held Thrane close as tears fell from his eyes. She reassured him that he would see his father again and then clutched him tightly. Another pair of soldiers rushed to the cart, lifting a small boy over the ledge. It was a tall, blonde male and a brown-haired female. They set a young boy in the cart with a stack of books and a white sack with the emblem of the Thortica Knights on it. The boy cried as he attempted to climb out and back to his mother and father. Tears filled the parents' eyes as they barred him from exiting. The boy's mother leaned in and whispered, It's only goodbye for now, dear Frederick. We will meet again as soon as the war is over. Until then, be strong and study your books. We love you. Thrane snapped out of his trance and took another sip. It curled his stomach. Well, Mum, you don't have to worry about me getting a taste for this horrid drink, he muttered to himself as he poured it out. He sat watching the remaining participants sign up and enter the competitors-only area, where they stuffed their bellies with ale and pork. Hours had passed, and the crowd grew drunker and rowdier by the minute. It was nearly midday when trumpets echoed through the streets. The crowd quickly became silent, and all attention was directed to the stage.